Hey everybody, Raul here for Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have the extraordinary honor and pleasure of chatting with eminent guitar player, vocalist, songwriter, singer, and bass player, Richie Kotzen. Yay!
Hi, how are you?
Outstanding, Richie. Well, I know many of us have seen you playing guitar, and we are familiar with many of the people you've played with because we talked to those guys as well, and some real heavy hitters. But let's take us to your past. How did you get started in music, and exactly how did you get involved in bass?
Well, I started in music very young. I was one of those kids that was always singing and dancing and trying to entertain the family. And so, you know, the entertaining singing part of it came first. And then someone suggested, you know, maybe he should take piano lessons because there was a piano in the house. So at about 5 years old, I started taking piano lessons. Didn't really love the process of sitting down with the teacher, learning what she was showing me. But about 2 years after that, I saw a guitar at a yard sale, and that caught my attention. And from there, that was it. And then once I started taking it, you know, more seriously, I realized quickly that it was more about once I learned the instrument, or as I'm learning the instrument, because you're never fully finished, what am I learning it for? And so the answer to that question for me was, I'm learning the instrument to make music. I want to make my own songs and I'll ultimately perform them, record them, and share them. So once I got in the mode of recording my own music in my home studio, you know, growing up in a relatively isolated area, I kind of had to figure out how to get it done, you know. And so that meant, you know, playing other instruments, maybe, you know, not perfectly, but to the degree that I could get my ideas documented. And so I would get behind the drums and lay down a basic drum beat, pick up the bass and, you know, the guitar, obviously. But I grew up listening to a lot of soul R&B music. Stevie Wonder was my first concert, and specifically the song "Maybe Your Baby" became an obsession for me as a young boy. And that obviously is a very bass-oriented song. So for whatever reason, my ear always leaned towards the bass guitar as much as the electric guitar.
Well, and Stevie's an amazing example because Nate Watt, who has laid down countless, and I think part of the challenge there is knowing when he's on bass synth and when he's on actual bass, because the pieces are so complicated. But it's a great illustration of the tapestry of the music and the layering and how each element complements.
I played with him on stage too. Yeah, I got to play with him on stage years ago at a NAMM show. There was a big after party, and I got up, and we were expecting Stevie Wonder to walk in and jump up, but I was slated to play only a couple of songs, and then I was off the stage, and then suddenly Stevie came in. And he sang a little bit, and he left, but he walked out the door still singing.
Oh, wow.
And you know, I have a great story for you about Stevie Wonder. Can I just tell you a great story?
Absolutely.
Because no one knows the story. A friend of mine worked for Prince, and Prince was renting a house up at Mulholland Park. We live in Los Angeles here. And so my friend said, I got invited to go to an Oscar after party at Prince's house.
Oh, wow.
You want to go with me? And he knew I was, you know, a huge fan. So it was a black tie affair, and he and I went to this party, and we were hanging out, having a great time. And in the living room, which was massive, at the end, there was a stage, but the stage was low, okay? And I'm way at the back with a glass of red wine, feeling pretty good, you know, and I'm listening to them play Superstition.
Okay.
And I'm thinking to myself, this is the greatest version of this song I've ever heard. And I'm thinking to myself, who the hell is singing this? So they finish, the band takes a break. I go outside by the pool. I run into my friend, and my friend says, did you see Stevie Wonder? And I said, no, I didn't know he was here. But the band was just playing Superstition, and it was the greatest version I ever heard. He goes, you idiot, that was Stevie Wonder singing it. And I couldn't see the stage. But, you know, Stevie Wonder was my first concert I ever went to in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. Then that was immediately after that George Benson. But I really think that is part of why I gravitate towards the bass guitar is that music, because the bass guitar is so important in the structure of those recordings.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, and on that note, you have a new album coming up, Nomad. I think the release date's on September 27th, if I'm not mistaken. And you played pretty much most of the instruments on all of the tracks. Tell us a little bit about that project.
Sure. Well, that's my new record. There's 8 songs on the album, and with the exception of 2 songs that I have 2 different drummers on, I'm the only musician. So I'm playing bass, I'm playing drums, obviously I'm singing, obviously playing the guitar, and I think there's a couple bits of clavinet and Hammond organ. That's me too. It's not because I won't allow anyone into the studio. It really has more to do with the fact of when I record, what's available to me, what resources do I have, and if I'm inspired and in the moment, I just keep working until the song is finished. So I never sit back and think, oh, I should get so-and-so to play this or so-and-so to play that. If anything, what'll happen is I'll have an idea for a drum groove and I don't have the chops to play it. So then I'll call a friend. And that's why there's 2 different drummers on 2 different songs, because I had these ideas and I couldn't quite execute them. So that's how that worked out. But it's set up so easy for me to do everything myself, because I really hear the music in my head more or less ready to go. And the objective is to get that out of the speakers. So it's very easy for me to jump behind the drums, put a beat down, play a bass line, sing a guide vocal, go back to the drums, maybe fix up a few things, go to the guitar. Everything is set up all the time the same way. So at any given moment, I can go to any instrument and tweak, change, alter until I'm fully satisfied with what I've got.
Nice. Well, and one of the big challenges for people that many times start on guitar and then pick up bass is changing the mindset of not thinking like the guitarist and trying to think like the bassist. And in many times, making less is more. So with the guitar, you're filling space, you're doing all this. And with the bass, you're kind of selectively punching into spots where it's going to accentuate the rest of the thing. Have you, and I know you've played with some of the most amazing bass players there are, do you draw inspiration from that, or is it organic? How it's
I think that's a two-part question for me, because you brought up me playing with other great bass players, which is very important. But I think that I do not do what you just described as far as figuring out this, that, filling space, blah, blah, blah. I hear music differently because I'm a singer.
Okay.
And I think this is common with a lot of singers, is that they hear music, I hear the melody and then the lyric. Those are the 2 key components to any song in my style of music. Is what is the melody, and what, actually more importantly than anything, even more important than the melody sometimes to me, is what am I singing? What is the point of view? What is the perspective? What is the story? So I think about the lyric and the melody, and then everything else, unless somebody is soloing, be it the bassist, the guitar player, the keyboard player, unless someone's soloing, everything else is built to support the vocal.
Gotcha.
And so to break that down, how it's very quick, the way this happens for me, you have the melody, that for me dictates the drum beat automatically. It's just instinctual. When I have a melody, I automatically feel the drum beat. And from there, I can feel the bass line and hear the bass line. And then the guitar is the element that sits inside that, okay? Unless, of course, a song is written, and a lot of mine are, off of something else, like a bass line. Sometimes I have a bass line, that's a great line, let me put a beat to it and try to write something to it. Or sometimes, like in the song Cheap Shots, I have a guitar riff. So I hear the guitar riff, I didn't have a vocal melody, but I had the guitar riff and I heard the drum beat.
Gotcha.
Right? So then once that existed, then I was thinking about the vocal melody, and then the bass line became obvious. So all these kind of things, because I'm one guy, and ultimately I know I've got to sing over it, all these other things fall into place with ease.
Nice.
It's not a complex science project of figuring out. It just kind of happens very naturally. And so that's why it's possible for me to do it. If it was a struggle and a challenge, and a math equation, I probably wouldn't bother with it. I'd move on to something else. The other thing about what you brought up is you're right. I was very lucky to play with some amazing bass players. And on my very first record, Stu Hamm was the bass player.
Wow.
And I was just out of high school, and the drummer was Steve Smith from Journey. And so, he's a serious jazz drummer, and Stu Hamm is an innovator. And so that was, okay, we're starting here on the first record, And then from there, it just went on and on. I played with T.M. Stevens. I did one of his tours. He did one of my tours. Obviously, Billy Sheehan and I played together in 2 different bands. Stanley Clarke and I have been in a band together. Jeff Berlin played on one of my records back in the 90s. And I don't want to leave anyone out, but I've been very, very fortunate to play not only with great bass players, but actually, bass players that have changed, innovative bass players that have changed the view of how the instrument is perceived, of what you can actually do on the instrument.
Absolutely.
I've been fortunate to play and make records with those guys. So I'm sure somehow subliminally, that's kind of in there in the sauce, when I go in the studio.
Nice. Now, with that, this release, it's a really cool. I saw the vinyl. It's blue vinyl. Is kind of almost like a sky blue. Really, really cool.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that was my idea to have blue vinyl. I love the color blue.
Nice.
Like the sky.
And are you planning on touring on the album? And if so, here's where the challenge comes, because you've put it all together in the studio, but you can't possibly play all the instruments yourself on stage, because on the video you can be multiple people, but on for real you can't. So do you have any idea who you would recruit for this project?
Well, it's all set. I mean, we just did 28 shows in Europe. We had a great time, did some festivals, opened for ZZ Top, opened for Extreme, had a couple headline shows, and now I'm going out again in September for almost 2 months in the United States. So we've been playing live, and it's all been fantastic. The reality is that I go out as a trio. So what happens when I choose songs that I think are going to translate well with the guys that are in my band.
Gotcha.
And the bass player, Dylan Wilson, since this is a bass interview, he's fantastic. And he's been with me since 2011, 2012, somewhere around that time. And I fully trust him. And, the beauty of playing with him is that we have in common, obviously the rock stuff and the funk, soul, old school R&B, but he delves quite a bit further into jazz. He plays upright really amazingly, and he has a lot of harmony knowledge. And so that benefits me when we improvise. And so that's a really important component to my live show. And the drummer's name is Kyle Hughes. He's new. And he came aboard to do the European tour, and he will be doing the run in the United States from September into November. But, to answer your question about playing it live, it really comes down to what's going to translate the best as a power trio.
Gotcha.
And what feels good as a trio. And, the other thing is that I've been making records under my own name since 1988. So I've got a lot of material to choose from. However, there are certain songs that people that follow my music want to hear.
Exactly.
Like "Remember" is a song that I always play. "Fear" is a song that I always play. "You Can't Save Me" is a song that I try to always play. It's not easy to sing every night, but I always try to have it in the set. So, you have those components that kind of help you decide, okay, what am I going to do for the set list?
Nice. Well, and if I'm sure people hearing that you're going to be touring are kind of going, okay, where can I find out how I can see this? The best place to go to richiekotzen.com. Would that be?
Of course. Yeah. On my website, richiekotzen.com, you'll see the shows, you'll see ticket links, VIP packages we offer, and it's all there, very simply laid out.
Nice. And social media, another place that I suppose.
Yeah, Instagram. I'm active on Instagram and not as much on Facebook. I kind of use Instagram to update my Facebook. I don't really look too much there, but I do update so people know where I'm playing and what I'm doing.
Got you. Well, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask, because even though, again, your strongest suit is the guitar and the songwriting and the vocalist stuff,
Yeah.
but people would like to know a little bit, how are you getting your sound gear-wise on bass? What are you playing on?
Yeah, okay, so I have a Fender Jazz that I use, and that's my main bass. You can see it in the Cheap Shots video. I'm playing it in that video.
Nice.
But I also have a white jazz bass that you're going to see in the next video I release. That's gorgeous. It was made in the custom shop, and it took nearly 2 years for me to get it. I mean, I put all the specs in, and they just nailed it. And I love the bass, and I finally got it. And obviously, that's going to become my main bass. It's white. I think they call it a Mary Kay finish, where you can see the wood grain through the white finish. It looks kind of like my Strat.
Nice.
And it's got gold hardware, and it's really light, which I love that.
Oh, yeah.
And it sounds amazing. It plays amazing. And then, when I record, because I don't play live the bass guitar, I don't have a live rig. So really what I'm doing is I'm going direct, and I go into an API preamp.
Mm-hmm.
I find that that's my favorite one for the bass. And I go in clean, and then later I can add any sort of compression or overdrive. Sometimes I add overdrive, but something that I do a lot is I double certain things on the bass when I record. So there's a song on the album, which is a great example, called Insomnia. And you've got a basic bass track, the main bass track.
Mm-hmm.
But there's certain lines that are played that I just wanted to stand out. And rather than use an octave pedal, I went on another track. And I've done this a lot in the past. I go on another track, and I'll double the line an octave higher and leave both of them in mono when it gets mixed. And it just makes the bass feel and sound bigger and more in your face. One thing I don't like on an album is when I can't hear the bass. And it's something that happens a lot in rock music, where they somehow can't figure out how to get the guitars big, but still hear what the bass player's doing, especially those older rock records. And if you listen to my albums, you hear the bass. I mean, if you go to 50 for 50, there's a song called Nickel Hustler. Check that out, because that's a bass extravaganza. And I actually was inspired by Byron Miller when he did a solo on years ago on George Duke's Reach For It. And I love that solo. I think he was just like 19 or something when he did it. And so I thought, I'm going to do a bass solo in this song, and I'm going to throw a chorus on there. I have it. I did my own solo, but I definitely was inspired by Byron on that one. But check it out. It's fun.
Nice. Well, and the double bass line is actually something in the old school they used to do a lot at Motown, where they get one bassist laying down kind of the foundation, and they had the other one kind of complementing that thing.
Yeah.
And for the listener, we're kind of going, especially if you're trying to lift the tune, you're going, what, which of these where do I pick? I can't seem to get this figured out.
It's orchestration that really makes the song, go to a different place,
Yeah.
It feels a certain way. Yeah. I love that.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, Richie, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. We're very excited about Nomad release coming September 27th. Folks, make sure you look on Richie's website, on social media, get your own copy, go see him live. I'm always encouraging people to support live music, because that's how we can continue to get out there and enjoy live music. You have to get out there to be, part of that.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. Folks, you've seen him here on Bass Musician Magazine, Richie Kotzen.
Bye.